That's right. Welcome in. It is another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, presented by No Vape, Idaho Public Television's campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of youth vaping. Be smart, don't start. Brandon Baney here with our Magic Valley expert to break down the biggest stories week in, week out in the great state of Idaho in District 4. The Magic Valley. That's what we're all about here. You can watch this Prepcast every single week on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. We do the show live. We don't always know what time we're going to do it, but if you subscribe, especially to our YouTube channel, you'll get a notification every time we plan on going live. And so that's the easiest way to track there. Of course, you can always watch a replay of this Prepcast anytime at Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And you can also listen to this podcast every week on IdahoSports.com, as well as wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. All right, let's bring on our expert from the Magic Valley now. It's DJ Scotty B, an oldie but a goodie. Scott, what's going on?
Yo, Brandon, what's shaking? Just we are cruising down the final stretches of the district tournament. State brackets will be set here shortly. And boy, it has just been busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, this is the time of year, Scott, where we kind of transform into our alter egos, right? I'm no longer Brandon Baney. I'm Brackets Baney, or as some of our other prepcasters have started calling me, Bulletin Board Baney, for all of the predictions I make that aren't true in terms of our bracketology.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. That's the best part of being a prognosticator or anything like that, is you are absolutely providing bulletin board material, cannon fodder. It is, hey, that's part of the job, man.
And I always say, you know, with my predictions, I love being wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back and own it to whichever fan base I offended. So I think I'm okay in the Magic Valley. I don't think I've ruffled too many feathers yet. So
not yet. We'll see. We'll see about tonight. You know, you've got one out there that is got some attention. You know, but we'll see how it plays out.
Okay.
We'll get to that one later.
Yes, we will. And Scott, this is the time of year where you kind of transform into DJ Scotty B. Of course, Jerome fans and the Jerome community know all about your music selection skills and your ability to get on the mic and hype up the crowd. But this is the time of year when everybody in the Magic Valley really learns, because Jerome hosts, all of these district tournaments, and you're getting to see new schools and new faces, and it's really a fun deal.
Oh, it's a blast. And, not being, just the AD there, but I get on the mic for the public address guy for all of our games. But that entails sometimes playing music over the awesome sound system that we have. And so the other night we had a game and the band was gone. And so I had to fill in. And since I can only play like the recorder and maybe those little finger snapper thingers, but I had to go spin some records. So I've got my phone plugged in, and I've got a playlist, timeouts. It's like blasting, all night long throughout the entire game. And I get this a lot, and it's not anything that I'm doing. It's just that the choice of music that I choose to play comes over. I mean, people come up and say, you know what? That's the best music that we've heard. And they're all my age, because I'm playing old rock and roll, and I'm not playing any of that new stuff that, the kids are listening to these days. That is not allowed in my gymnasium. And so I'm playing like just hits from the past, and it's a whole different experience. And so I had a guy come up to me after that game, and he goes, you know what, for your next podcast, you should be the DJ. And I'm like, all right, done.
Perfect.
So here we go, DJ Scotty B. And a little fun fact for you: back in the day, I was a DJ. I had my own business, and I was playing private parties and dances and bar mitzvahs and whatever else. So yeah, so it takes me back a little bit.
Fun. It's always a good time for sure. Anytime you're talking about a playlist, I always think of, I don't know if you watch the show, Scott, but I'm sure you have heard of it. How I Met Your Mother kind of came out in the mid 2000s.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
The character Barney on the show, he's played by, oh my gosh.
Neil Patrick.
Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah, and he's talking one time, and he's like, everybody thinks a good playlist has to rise and fall. That's false. It's all rise, baby. That's all this playlist is. It's all rise. And then he kicks it off with Bon Jovi. You give him a bad name.
Yes, exactly. See, Barney and I, we got it going on. So I mean, I agree the same way.
A good playlist has all rise for sure. Well, certain teams, Scott, have started to rise up to the occasion here in the postseason as we are approaching the final 2 days of district tournament competition across the state. We'll have some district games tonight, 1 or 2 district games tomorrow night, and then obviously all of the state tournament play-in games taking place Saturday across the state as well. And so we are going to run through the latest girls basketball bracket developments here. We will show you the brackets up on the screen. So if you're watching along here, you just got to sit back and enjoy. I always tell people, make the screen full size. It's a little easier to read the brackets that way. If you're listening audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download podcasts, you can follow along. We have all the district brackets on our homepage at IdahoSports.com. Every bracket, every district around the state, and you can click on the brackets and follow along that way. Scott, I will also programming note our regularly scheduled Magic Valley Prepcast next week will be interrupted with our annual girls basketball state preview special.
Yep.
And so I'll just mention this now. Boys basketball district tournaments get started next week, Scott. One district in East Idaho already started. And so we have all of the boys basketball district brackets right now on our homepage at IdahoSports.com as well. And as regular season play wraps up this weekend, we will begin filling in the teams on the brackets also. So be on the lookout for that.
Yep. Busy time. And the last 3 days here of the girls district tournament is just frantic. We had some teams clinch last night. We have some second berths being offered tonight, play-in games on Saturday. So the final 3 days of a district tournament are bananas. I mean, it is high impact, tense situations, and it's going on all over the state, and I love it.
All right. Well, let's start in chronological order with the teams that clinched the earliest, and that would take us to, Scott, the Class 3A. Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference, the SCIC. Wednesday night, Filer and Kimberly, the rematch. And again, these teams split in the regular season. Filer won the undefeated semifinal last Wednesday, 45-41, very tight game. Kimberly gets back through the backside of the bracket. And again, very close game, but Filer pulls it out 44-38. So the Wildcats have now won 5 consecutive district championships. They're at state for the 5th consecutive year. And now Kimberly advances to this state play-in game here where they will have to play McCall Donnelly. This will be Saturday, 1 p.m. at Mountain Home High School. So for Kimberly, hey, they don't have to travel that far. McCall Donnelly, meanwhile, that's a pretty significant road trip for them.
It really is, and this is an interesting, McCall Donnelly team, just because, this was a team that they got upset in the opening round of their district tournament. Parma knocked them off, and it was just, they came in as the number 2 seed, leading their conference, record-wise, as they finished up with like 14-7 record, 8-2 in their conference. And now they are going to the play-in game, and Parma, the number 3 seed, is the one that gets the berth. So, McCall Donnelly down the stretch a little bit kind of struggled. They barely got to this game because when you look at what they had to go through after getting knocked off by Parma, they drubbed Homedale, but then they needed overtime to get by number 4 Weiser and get to that play-in game, which will take place tomorrow at Mountain Home at 1:00. So you have to wonder if McCall Donnelly is just kind of stumbling down the stretch a little bit. I do like Kimberly in this one. I think they are incredibly athletic, but it should be a good game in Mountain Home tomorrow.
And here's the part, Scott, where I start alienating the good folks in the Magic Valley on my bracketology projections all along. from the start of district play to now. I updated every mid-morning with my latest projections and who's clinched, and I go over the biggest stories of the night prior in district tournament action. I've had Kimberly in this play-in game the entire time, and I have had Kimberly falling every single day I've done this. The opponent has changed at times. I just really believe in this McCall Donnelly team. Kimberly is also very talented, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back and wear it. But
you're right. I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased to our, Magic Valley teams and want them to win, but I mean, if we're being honest, and I take off that hat and I put on the broadcaster media hat, Kimberly's got the work cut out for them. I mean, there's no question about it. I don't think anybody saw McCall Donnelly being in this position. It's not that Kimberly can't win this ball game, because they certainly can, but it's going to be a little bit tougher than I think this particular play-in game people thought would be, because I don't think McCall Donnelly was supposed to be there.
Right. And McCall Donnelly has a dynamic athlete in Gabby Green. She can walk into the gym and just get 25 points pretty effortlessly. The key is for them, who else is going to step up? And that loss to Parma basically said, we're going to do everything we can to stop Gabby Green. Now, she still went out and got 18. And so that's what the defense face guarding her the entire night. But the problem is only 3 players in total scored for McCall Donnelly in that loss to Parma. And that's a serious problem.
That is a problem. I mean, Gabby Green, the senior guard, is, she is the one that she's the conductor, but it's going to be about that supporting cast stepping up and getting it done. I mean, this is really kind of a young McCall Donnelly team. I mean, they've only got 2 seniors on their roster. This is a bunch of sophomores and juniors. And those young kids are going to have to step up and give Gabby a little bit of help, because she's not, when you play teams like that have the star, you know what, you almost have to let them get theirs. Just try to minimize the damage, but it's always the supporting cast that ends up biting you. And that's what Kimberly's going to have to be aware of.
Yeah. One more fun fact for the Kimberly fans that are going to go watch this on Saturday. You're going to notice 3 players on that McCall Donnelly roster with the last name Arnold, and they're all juniors. And so I asked and found out they're all sisters. So you're like, oh, triplets. Wow, that's pretty cool. No, they have a brother, Maddox Arnold, who was the quarterback for the football team and also plays basketball for the boys team. He is also a junior. It's quadruplets, Scott. It's these 3 girls and then Maddox, the boy. Isn't
that crazy? I mean, not a lot of people know that, but what an amazing story that is. I mean, you don't get twins a lot, let alone triplets. Quadruplets? Are you kidding me? In a small town like McCall and Donnelly in that area? Boy, what a cool time for that family coming through, just to have all of those kids be athletes. How fun for them. That's awesome.
Yep. And here right away, Logan Green in the chat here, our Treasure Valley Prepcaster, Bulletin Board Baney. Yep, it's already started. So I'm going McCall Donnelly, but I would love to see Kimberly advance to state, obviously. And for Filer, this is a 3A tournament field that's wide open, I think, Scott. Every team that has made it kind of has warts, if you will. No team is like, Teton comes in with the best record, but this is a new position for them. And so I really do think Filer, with the athletes that they have, can go there and be disruptive defensively, especially.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. I mean, Teton is the one that everybody's kind of looking at. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the state. They're just rolling right now. They're unanimous number 1, coming in at 20-1 on the season. And you talk about McCall Donnelly, there they are. I mean, they're in the latest coaches poll anyway, tied for 5th with Fruitland. But, you look at the other teams on that list, and not getting votes is any Magic Valley team. It's, Timberlake and Snake River, Sugar. I mean, the usual suspects are there. But there's some really good 3A teams this year.
Yep. And Sugar did not make it to state for the first time in several years. So
yeah, exactly. And you don't hear that very often. Sugar is kind of like the Bishop Kelly of the East, where they are just a constant presence at every state tournament. And for them not to be there is a little different.
Yep, for sure. So congrats to Filer. Good luck to Kimberly on Saturday, 1:00 at Mountain Home High School against McCall Donnelly. Okay, Scott, the next tournament that had a district championship decided was also Wednesday night. This is at the 2A Canyon Conference, just a little intimate two-team affair here between Declo and Wendell. Declo, it's a best of 3 series. Declo won game 1 Monday night, 58-27. Wendell pushed him in that second game Wednesday, 40-30. The Hornets got the 10-point win, and we talked about this. We thought Wendell probably a year away still, very young team, but if you're Coach Tia Standley, you have to be proud of how your girls responded in what ended up being the season finale.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you go into this thing and knowing that, you know, Declo is the overwhelming favorite, and it's just one of those situations to where if you're the kids from Wendell, you're not expected to win, but you wonder as a coach, are we even going to put up a fight, right? I mean, we got slapped around by almost 30 the first time around. What are we going to do? You know, and they came back and they battled. And so even though it was a loss for Wendell, we talked about this before, this is a young team, a young program, and they needed that positive note at the end to springboard themselves into something next year. And even though they lost, I think that was a positive step for this young Wendell team. I mean, to battle, not go to state, we knew that was going to happen, but they put up a fight, and that's what you want to see.
And then on the other side of the coin, Declo advances to state once again. Very nice season for Coach Cody Powers, 17-5, and they are really, Scott, kind of the one wild card because they just haven't played anybody that's also going to be at this state tournament. You know, they have some pretty big wins over a Malad team, you know, or they played a Malad team pretty tight and lost by 4. But guess what? Malad didn't make it to state out of districts. They played a really good Firth team and lost in overtime twice to Firth, and we thought that was going to be a team that got to state. Well, they didn't make it either. They got upset. Both of those teams, Malad and Firth, got upset as higher seeds against lower seeded teams and were kaput. So Declo is the kind of the one wild card. They haven't actually played. Now they've played Ambrose, who could get there in a play-in game, but Declo is the one team that I'm not sure. Everybody else has kind of played each other this year. They're kind of the one wild card in this whole thing.
Well, you know, and that's part of the problem that this particular conference has sometimes, or some, you know, conferences from year to year. If you don't battle within your conference, you're not really going to the state tournament sometimes battle tested. And there's something to be said about that. And that's why we talk about that 1A D1 conference so much, is because they just beat the snot out of each other week after week. And we get some of these conferences that don't. There's just too many doormats that just aren't really good. And you don't get challenged. You don't learn how to win close. You don't learn how to battle week to week. You know, and those are the things that are going to make a difference at a state tournament. You know, and we talk about this, and I'm going to liken it to, you know, perhaps, you know, college football just a little bit, right? Back when the BCS busting was going on and everybody was like, well, hey, Boise State, they should be there. And granted, they had some great teams, and I'm a Boise State fan, but the argument never was won, because it's not about getting yourself up for one game. It's about getting yourself up week after week after week and being battle tested and beat up and knowing how to fight. That's what you need going into a state tournament, you know, and some of these teams aren't getting that, and they may be really good, but if they just would have been pushed in the regular season a little bit more, I think maybe a different result could happen at the state tournament, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And Declo did the best they could, right? They're in a tough position of, you have 2 dates that are guaranteed in your conference, and then, hey, good luck, go find 18 more. It's
right.
a tough spot to be in, and they did the best they could. They did play Raft River. They played Oakley and Filer. So
and even took on Oakley, you know, so they're doing the best they can. And that's not a knock necessarily on anybody. That's just the way it is. But what that does as a coach, and I've been in this situation before, where now all of a sudden I have got to find some way for my team to compete. I got maybe create battles within my own team. You know, when I was coaching the boys, or the girls rather, after I moved over from the boys, you know, we had a really, really good girls basketball team that were just at state every year, making runs, whatever. And we were having a problem getting some competition in the area. And within our own team sometimes. So what we did is we started scrimmaging our boys team. Our boys, not varsity, they would have killed us, but like we brought in the JV boys and just played them relentlessly. And we told them, you do not take it easy on us. And so we got to see a bigger, faster, stronger team day after day after day because we weren't getting it on our schedule. And so as a coach, when you have those situations, you've got to get creative. You've got to find a way to keep your team competitive and battle tested.
Yeah, it's a tough road to travel, but Declo does it every year with no complaints. And they're 17-5 going into state. Yep. We'll see how that all shakes out. All right, Scott, you mentioned it, that 1A D1 Snake River Conference. What a wild tournament this has been all week long. And I want to give a shout out to the Times News in Twin Falls. You know, there was a period of time where there was like no sports coverage whatsoever from the Times News. They have got a great editor, Adam Engel, in place now, and some really good staff writers. They've been knocking it out of the park with their coverage of all of this district tournament action that's been going on. It's been enjoyable to follow their recaps of it.
Yeah, and while you're on that, you know, that was huge resurrection of the Times News, and I hope they get it back. I want to shout out to Diane Philbin, though, too, as she was one that really tirelessly tried to get that resurrected, and then handed it off to Adam. And I hope they run with it and do a fantastic job. Yep.
And so that's what we need from our local media partners. Absolutely, Scott. So it's been very enjoyable. This has been a crazy tournament. I guess we have to start with what happened Tuesday night. And I guess technically this was the first tournament that got decided, but I wanted to not go with the most dramatic thing first. Let's start with this third place game over here, or this fourth place game. Raft River, the defending state champions, Scott, get knocked out by Valley. Now, we talked all the way at the start of the season, and we both said, hey, this Valley team's got some players. Lexi Hudig is a great scorer. They've got a first-year coach in Derek Malone, but they've got good athletes. Keep an eye on them. They knock out Raft River by 3, 47-44. Let's start there. The defending state champions from Raft River out at districts.
Wow, that is a surprise, you know, and we knew that there were teams in this, you know, conference. I mean, and again, this is what I just got done talking about. If you know how to fight and you are constantly in these types of games, then they don't bother you as much down the stretch. And when you are in this particular conference, you know each other so well that any given night, anything can happen. And Valley was just that team on the outside, just kind of sitting in that 4 spot in the conference, just good enough to maybe beat one of these top 3 teams and sneak in, but really off everybody's radar. Because when you are battling the likes of Murtaugh and Oakley and Raft River, you are kind of like at the kiddie table after that. But there are enough teams in this conference, and Valley just kind of hung out in the shadows and just went, you know what? All right, it's time to strike. Let's go. And they pulled the big, big upset by knocking off Raft River. And I don't know if many really saw that one coming.
5:39 to play in the game, Scott. Valley is down by 7, 38-31.
Oh, yeah. And then the comeback. Yeah. On top of that,
they close it out on a 16-6 run to get the come from behind victory. Valley did not lead until there was 2:38 remaining in the game. Joni Lewis hit a mid-range jumper, put Valley in front 40-38. And then not only that, but with 10.2 seconds left, Joni Lewis goes to the free throw line, hits 2 huge free throws to put Valley back in front by 3, 47-44. Raft River's got 1 shot at it. There's 10 seconds left, but they try to go to Reagan Jones at midcourt. Lexi Hudig steals the pass, dribbles out the clock, and Raft River gets snuffed out. That was a huge win for Valley and a first-year coach in Derek Malone. Great job.
Oh, yeah. I know Derek. Derek's a friend of mine, and he comes from that lineage in Valley of Malone. I mean, Rod Malone, longtime administrator, coach, figure, still is over there. So congratulations to Derek. That is huge. And now he's got one more. He's not there yet, but he's got one more coming, and he's going to have to take on Lakeside out of the north. And this is a Lakeside team that finished, right around 500. Really 3 teams in that conference. Wallace is the one that's the big dog there, but Lakeside, I mean, they've got some players. They ended with a bunch of wins down the stretch, getting hot at the right time. But Valley's going to have to go all the way up now to Grangeville to play this game against Lakeside to get to the tournament.
Yeah, we'll talk about that play-in game here in just a moment. So that was the table setter Tuesday night at the College of Southern Idaho. Then the championship happened, and somehow that was even more incredible. Murtaugh and Oakley and the Hornets. Hey, I'm gonna boast here, because coming into this thing, my very first bracketology, I said, you know what? I like Oakley to win this thing and be the district champions as the number 2 seed. And they pulled it off 41-40, the final over Murtaugh. And then this was kind of a wild back and forth fourth quarter. The teams are trading leads. I think the lead changed hands 6 times over the final 5 minutes, Scott. That is just an all-time classic of a game.
Oh, it's punch and counter punch. 2 heavyweights going at it. And just really who had the ball last, who was going to get the last shot. And, it was an instant classic over at CSI, and congratulations to Oakley, the number 2 seed out of the conference. I don't think anybody is really surprised. They wouldn't have been surprised if Murtaugh won, wouldn't have been surprised if Oakley won, wouldn't have been surprised if Raft River won, but congratulations to Oakley. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Murtaugh took the lead 33-32 with 4:46 to play. It was their first lead since the second quarter. So Oakley was in control for a long time in this game. And then Oakley's up 39-35. Courtney Jensen hits back-to-back layups to tie the game at 39 all with 39 seconds to play. Oakley's got the ball, and Cambry Beck has it in the right corner. She goes for the shot fake, and then she takes 1 or 2 dribbles, buries a baseline jumper with 18.2 seconds to play, ends up being the game-winning bucket, essentially. Murtaugh makes 1 free throw from there. And then kind of an interesting finish. There was 1.4 seconds left, and Oakley was inbounding the basketball, and they threw it deep, just trying to run out the clock. But the problem was the clock hadn't started. And so they got together and were just yeah, game's over. I mean, if the clock had started, it would have been over. It's just kind of an interesting finish. Didn't really impact anything too much, but just a wild night.
Yeah. And, we've talked about Cambry and her ability and her athleticism. And, that's who you want taking the shot when it comes right down to it. You want your veteran and your star player taking the shot, and the Beck name out of Oakley. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. And congratulations to them. And I'm interested to see how far they go, because this is, like we said, a conference that is the best in the state when it comes to the 1A D1 ranks. And so they're going to go into this tournament knowing what it feels like to be in these close games.
Yep. Oakley, 3rd year in a row they're at state, Scott, and they are doing it with a first-year coach too, Kristen Jones. She was the assistant for a long time under Matt Payton. He retired in the offseason, and so Coach Jones getting it done there at Oakley as well.
Yeah, no, and congratulations to Coach Jones. I mean, those are huge shoes to fill. I mean, we've talked with Matt Payton before on many occasions, and to hand the reins over and then have Oakley get there. I mean, that's huge. And that speaks to the program. It speaks to the community and the kids and everything they got going on over there. And, great season, and it will continue.
Yeah, for Oakley, you feel like they're coming to state with some unfinished business. The first year they got there, it was 2 years ago. Who'd they have to play in the first round? Raft River, of course. They lost that game 37-42. They win the next 2 to take home the consolation trophy. Then they get to state last year, and they're up against it in the semis. They're taking on Big Bad Lapway, the big heavy favorite, coming into the state tournament, and they put on one of the all-time great defensive clinics. Addie
Yep.
Mitten and company last year just stifled Lapway. They won 38-32. That was after they had to beat Grace in overtime, 33-28. So they get an OT win over Grace by 5. They beat Lapway in the semis by 6. They're like, hey, we got to the championship. Who we lined up against? Raft River.
No, really?
And they lose by 4 in last year's championship. Well, guess what? Raft River ain't going this year. So Oakley, I think, has a great opportunity to finally capitalize here. They brought home the consolation trophy. They brought home the second place trophy. I think it's time for them to bring home that blue trophy.
Well, and the thing is, it's funny too, because there's always that Achilles heel. There's always that one team that just is that thorn in your side that you can't get rid of. But, if you're Oakley, I mean, you don't think about those things really, but you sort of do. And knowing that you're looking at this bracket and Raft River's not on it, you're like, okay, all right, let's go, because we just talk about those epic battles, and it doesn't matter whether it's conference play, district tournament, state tournament, they cannot get out of each other's way. And now Oakley can just breathe and go, it's somebody else, So I'm interested to see where they go. This will be fun.
Yeah. So Oakley advances. And then last night, Scott, we had the third place game supposed to take place at Jerome, but you guys had a game of your own. So it got moved to Shoshone High School. Murtaugh, after losing by 1 in the championship, they didn't want to risk the play-in game. They said, let's take care of business now. We've missed out on state the last 2 years when we felt like we had a team that was good enough to go. Let's go get it. They win 68-43 over Valley last night. And so Murtaugh is headed to state for the first time in a couple of years. This was a big breakthrough for the Devils.
It was. And I think, I don't know. I think there's a couple of things that play into this one here. The first thing is you lose a really tight game in the district championship, and then the very next day you got to turn around and fight again to get to state. And there's always going to be that, how is my team going to respond? Do we have enough in the tank physically, emotionally? What are we going to look like in this play-in game against a team that is coming in just flying high, right? And that was Valley. But I think at the same time, when you look at Murtaugh's dominance, I mean, I think they're looking at this going, okay, hey, just play your game. We can take care of Valley. We've done it before. We're going to continue to do it. And I think it just sort of maybe settled everybody down. But, if that's Raft River coming around the other side to play them, it might have been a little bit more tense. And I'm not taking anything away from Valley, but I mean, you just look at the reality of the situation, so there's two things happening there. How's your team going to respond? And then who is it that's coming back around to play you?
There's a group of 5 seniors for Murtaugh this year, and they all were part of the team that got to state 3 years ago. They were all freshmen. And I'm sure at the time we're thinking, hey, this is awesome. Let's do it again. We're going to get there all 4 years. It's going to be great. And then you find out it's hard. It's hard to qualify for state. So they went through it as sophomores and juniors where they just missed out. And now here they are almost trying to complete the story as you were. 5 seniors, Ashley Stanger, Addie Stanger, Briley Widmere, Courtney Jensen, and I'm drawing a blank on the last senior, Scott. But anyways, this group now has a chance as seniors to come through and deliver.
Yeah, they do, and there's always something to be said about experience, and they definitely have it on their side. So, coming out of this conference, they're going to be ready to fight, but that experience and that little hunger, knowing that, hey man, this is the last chance we're going to get with this. So, if Murtaugh can keep it together, they could make a run. And who knows, maybe we could see, if the bracket's set up right, we could see an Oakley Murtaugh final.
Yeah, and I guess I can't count, Scott, 4 seniors. I did have it right. So Jensen, the 2 Stangers, and Widmere. That's the that's the quartet for Murtaugh. I'm looking at the bracket right now, and the way the seedings are looking to shake out. Oakley right now, Scott, would be the number 2 seed. Again, this was yesterday before the district tournament games happened. So Oakley is 2, Murtaugh is 4 for the moment. on opposite sides of the bracket, and it looks like that could hold. So Oakley could get to the championship and go, all right, who are we playing? And then they look at, oh, it's Murtaugh. Great.
I know, right? It's like, here we go again. All right, fine, let's do it.
Yep. Okay, and as for Valley, they still have a shot to get to state via this play-in game right up here. You mentioned it, Scott. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific time. That is 4 o'clock Mountain time at Grangeville High School. They're going to play Lakeside. Scott, I got to see Lakeside with my own eyes on Wednesday night. I was on the call for Lakeside's district championship win over Wallace.
That's right. I forget you're up north now.
Yes, it is your typical Lakeside team. They have good athletes. They had kind of been holding in their back pocket all year, this full court press. They finally brought it out for the district championship, and they got up 18-6 after one quarter, and Wallace kind of never recovered after that. The one thing they don't have is any height. Their tallest player is probably like 5'8". So, if Valley can find some success inside and not turn the ball over against this pressure defense, they're going to have a shot.
They are. And, you look at this Lakeside team, and, they're relatively young. They've got 3 or 4 seniors on their roster is all. And they're, like you said, they're athletic, not very big. They've got some quickness. So it's going to be whether or not teams can exploit the paint on them, and how are they going to defend that? Because the one thing that we see a lot at state tournaments is, the teams that advance the most are the ones that actually can score inside the paint. And for a quick pressing team like Lakeside, they're going to have to make sure that they get layups, because it's not going to be entering the ball to the post. And how do you do that? Well, you do that with defense. You do that with turnovers, because, the last thing that you want going into a state tournament is to try to win the game or win the tournament from the perimeter, because it doesn't happen. You got to find a way to get the ball to the rim. If they don't have the post play, they better do it in transition. They better do it in defense. And that is what Lakeside's built for.
Yep. So it'll be an interesting play-in game for sure. Good luck to the Vikings. Again, bulletin board Baney. I have projected Lakeside to win this matchup, but
wow.
that might be my bias after I just saw them look so good on Wednesday night, Scott.
Well, look at you. I mean, look at you just dissing all the Magic Valley teams now that you've moved up north. You're safe. Nobody can touch you up there, right? So you can say what you want. I won't give them your address for very cheap.
You're right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go to the Great Basin Conference. Scott, Class 4A, District 4. District championship last night, Minico and Twin Falls. The Bruins led this game at halftime, Scott,
they did.
By almost double digits. I think they had an 8-point lead at halftime. They had an 8-point lead, into the third quarter. And then Minico closes it out on a 24-1 run. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. I mean, Minico was just kind of getting, they weren't in a rhythm, they went into the half down by 6. But it was like, they'd only scored 20 points in an entire half. And that is, CJ Lotta can score 20 and a quarter if she wants sometimes, but they just were out of sync, out of rhythm. They came out of the locker room and kind of reestablished themselves a little bit, outscoring Twin 15-5, I believe, in that third quarter, and regained the lead going in. And then just down the stretch ended up pulling it away, by 9. But man, this is a Twin team right now that is trying to get it done with defense. They're trying to get it done by getting physical. They're going to get up in your face. They're going to try to create some turnovers. And that's kind of where they've had their success down the stretch. Now, the problem they're going to have is they're missing Hallie Egbert. Without her in the lineup, it makes the offensive side of things a little bit more of a struggle, because she is obviously a huge part of that Bruin team. But not having her, well, it forces you to change your hand just a little bit, because you're not going to go out there and get, those 2 or 3 girls for the Bruins that can sit on the perimeter and bang shots. If they shut that down, then you better be able to D somebody up, because the score is going to be a little bit tighter. It's going to be a little bit lower, and Twin is adjusted to that. And I think they had that working for them for a lot of that game against Minico, but they're going to have to turn around and do it again tonight if they want to get to the state tournament.
Yeah, Scott, you tell me if I'm wrong here, because I did the 4A girls tournament last year and Twin was there. So I got to see him a couple of times, and it was mostly the same group of girls that are there now. But Hallie Egbert is never, very rarely does she lead the team in scoring on any given night. Obviously, Twin doesn't have a ton of size, so very rarely you see the leading rebounder. She's a great defender, but she is, more importantly, to me, it looked like last year, the player that kind of gets everybody lined up and organized. She's kind of the floor general, as it were, for this Twin Falls team.
Right. And that floor general is so important, because the floor general, I mean, that has been invaluable to, her team, because it's not just about scoring. She can score. There's not a question about it. And I mean, she doesn't have to go out there and score 20 a night, but it's just having that option there, and then knowing that that's somebody that could maybe D up your best or second best player. That's the person that can maybe keep everybody calm on the floor, right? I mean, there's just a lot that goes on with that. And, having, her out of the lineup is I mean, it makes them not as strong. I mean, this is a really good veteran Twin team that's got a lot of girls back and some really good players. But they got their work cut out for them tonight.
And, it's easy to forget, but their coach, Michael Amaya, he can coach. Mm-hmm. He can coach.
Yeah, no, he's been around. I mean, he for those that don't know, I mean, he was the Filer guy for years and years and did a great job over there. And so he's now at Twin in his second year, I believe, second or third year. Yeah, right. And here they are, one game away from going to state. And that game's going to be on the Bruin floor, because they stole the seed from Jerome when they came over and knocked them off in the opening round.
Yep. Even though Jerome is the 2 seed and Twin is the 3, they inherited that home court advantage by winning here in the semis, 39-36. So let's get to it. I've projected now Twin ever since they beat Jerome in this game. I've kind of projected Twin as the second team to advance out of the state tournament, or to the state tournament. Justin Fitzgerald from the Times News summed it up pretty succinctly here, Scott. So I'm just going to read what he wrote. It's a rematch of last year's true second place game, a 42-40 Twin Falls win, with both teams taking the exact opposite road to get there compared to last year. Last year, Jerome won at Twin Falls in the conference tournament semifinals before losing at Minico in the district championship. And this past Friday, the Lady Bruins won the semifinal 39-36 before they fell to Minico. He goes on to say, the Battle of the Bridge has become the closest rivalry in the Magic Valley, with the last 5 meetings between the two teams decided by 3 points or less. And not only have the games come down to the wire, but the road team has won the last 6 meetings. I'd say that sounds like good news for Jerome.
Yeah, don't think we don't know that. But I mean, that's the perfect summation of what's been going on with these two teams. They match up against each other well. Jerome has struggled a little bit down the stretch, and it was injuries that really kind of were getting them. They had 3 of their, top 6 girls were out, and they were trying to work their way back, and they were trying to get back in time for the district tournament. So the first couple of games, they were just limited on minutes. And what happens is now all of a sudden you've got to try to get that rhythm back, that team, gelling again, because you're a little discombobulated on the floor and you just haven't been, playing together for a bit. And so they opened, when they played Burley in the district tournament, they didn't look right. Jerome didn't. They were just out of sync, and you could tell there was no rhythm. Well, when Twin came over and knocked them off, this was not the Jerome team that we have seen. They were out of rhythm. And all of a sudden, Jerome's kind of going, what are we doing? Because we are not playing well. We have no rhythm. We have no fluency. We look like we haven't played together. And then they played Burley. And for about 3 quarters, Burley was hanging with them, and Burley should not have been hanging with them. But in that 4th quarter, it's almost like, boom, the switch flipped. And all of a sudden, that old Jerome team came back. And those players that were hurt were playing a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more confident. And you could see, okay, it's coming back. And then last night, they played Mountain Home, and they got off to a blistering start. They were up 20-5 like that. And you could see, okay, they're back. And so now they're taking some momentum across the bridge over to Twin, and one game for it all. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a battle. There's no question about it. It always has been.
I can't wait. Twin, of course, trying to get to state for the second year in a row. Jerome, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, 2010, the last time Jerome's girls got to state.
Yeah, that was on the staff that year. So it's been a long time. So yeah, I think I remember that team that I was coaching. It was a special team, a special time back for Jerome in that time. But it has been a good 12, 13 years since Jerome's been at the state tournament on the girls' side.
Yep. All right. We did have a comment here from Jesse. He says, let's go Murtaugh. Yeah, we talked about Murtaugh a little while ago in that 1A D1. Let's wrap up with, I think, as equally as good of a matchup tonight. 1A D2, Sawtooth Conference, Scott. It is Dietrich. It is Richfield for the fourth time this year. The Tigers are hoping this series goes to game 5, the winner take all. Dietrich only needs one win to close out the championship here. They beat Richfield in this undefeated semifinal 51-33. That was last Thursday, right after we recorded, Scott. So I'd say Dietrich was pretty motivated. Now we'll see. Richfield gets a shot at him, but they have to win twice, and that's always the tricky part.
Yeah, it is. And, you come in when you're Richfield after kind of a loss like that, and you're licking your wounds just a little bit. You wonder where your head's at, because Dietrich is, I think Dietrich is the better team. I mean, Dietrich is the more balanced, just the tougher team. And Richfield's got their work cut out for him.
Make no mistake, Dietrich can't score 51. Richfield has to keep this game in the 30s, kind of like a twin Jerome. They got to keep it in the 30s.
Well, that's what Richfield. You're right, and that's what Richfield does. I mean, they predicate themselves on defense and slowing it down and maybe ugling it up and being physical, and they're going to have to do all of that and then some to get by Dietrich. But you're right, they cannot allow Dietrich to get to 45, I don't think.
Yeah. This game is tonight at Gooding. If Richfield wins, winner take all game 5 tomorrow night, also at Gooding High. And just selfishly, I want it to go the distance. Let's go the 5.
Who doesn't? I mean, I don't care who you are. You're watching, a best of 7 series. You want a game 7 always. I don't care who you are.
Yep. All right. So that is what's going on with all of the girls district tournament action here in the Magic Valley. Before we wrap up with some quick boys basketball talk, Scott, did you know that vaping is not safer than cigarette smoking? I mean, you might as well. You shouldn't do either. But if you think vaping is somehow healthier for you than smoke, you might as well just get a cigarette and do. I mean, they're both equally damaging.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad stuff that our kids just are not getting yet. Just maybe sometime they're going to get the message.
Yeah. And at the same time, Scott, you're an administrator at a high school. I'm sure you've seen this. Did you know that lots of teens and tweens are secretly vaping in classrooms, school bathrooms, and even at home?
It's funny because schools are now getting like some grant money to put in like vape detectors. And so a lot of our schools have got them. And it doesn't matter what you do, they always find a way, and it's a huge problem because it's not detectable a lot of the times to a teacher, perhaps because it is odorless at times and it's secret. Even, clothing companies and stuff are making it easier to conceal, by little secret pockets here and little places here. And this problem goes beyond the vaping companies because some of these other companies are piggybacking on top of that because they see a money-making opportunity at the expense of our kids.
That's despicable. Clothing companies are doing that, man.
Oh, it is. You ought to see some of the stuff that they're coming out with, and even the people that are developing the vaping, machines. They look like highlighters. You can disguise them as anything that you want. Deodorant cans, So when you're going through somebody's stuff or you see something laying around, it doesn't look like anything, but you're staring right at a vape and you don't know it. And that's what these companies are doing. It's a multi-million-dollar business right now, and they could care less who's suffering, and it's disgusting.
That's why the work that No Vape is doing is so critically important, because if you don't know what to look for. And so again, No Vape is Idaho Public Television's campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of youth vaping. Be smart, don't start. And for teens out there, or parents of teens that are out there watching, No Vape is holding a video contest. If you're from Idaho and you're between the ages of 13 and 18, you can enter the No Vape video contest to expose the shadowy commercial tobacco marketing tactics behind vaping, as well as the known and unknown health effects, the misinformation about vaping, and how addictive and harmful vaping can be for teens. All you have to do is create and then upload your 90-second vape bashing masterpiece, and you could win a portion of more than $10,000 in prize money being awarded.
Wow.
That's a pretty cool deal for a high school kid.
That is way cool. And, gets you involved in a really good cause too.
Yeah. So for more details, just go to your favorite web browser, type in No Vape Idaho. That's no with a K, Know, and you can get all the details from there. No Vape Idaho. Be smart, don't start. All right, Scott, we're going to wrap up with a little boys basketball convo. We're going to check in on the Wood River Wolverines this week because not that long ago, Cooper Fife is a tremendous player for Wood River. We kind of talked about this last week. They always seem to have like one guy that is like a scoring machine, Johnny Radford, a couple years ago. And now Cooper Fife has kind of taken that mantle. He put up 38 points recently in a game, which has got to be one of the highest point totals of the season for anybody in the Magic Valley. Almost hitting 40. That's hard to do in a high school game.
It really is. And this kid is, this kid's a real deal. He's, in my opinion, the best player in the conference. And he's just one of those kids that he's a two-way player. He can dominate on both sides of the ball, and against Burley when he scored 38, he just picked him apart. He was able to create his own shots and playmaking and, score off of offensive rebounds. He's one of those kids that can just hurt you in so many different ways. And we talk about, these scoring kids. And a lot of times these kids, they think that, and I've coached them before, and it's just been like trying to drill something into their head to make them understand, you need to shoot the ball, but you need to be able to create. You need to be able to find a way to score when your perimeter shot is off. That means go crash the stinking glass. Go get a steal and a layup. But a lot of these kids, when they think about scoring points, it's about, well, I'm just going to camp at the three and I'm just going to bomb away until I hit my number, and that's it. And if I'm off, I'm off. I'm on, I'm on. That's not what good players do. And that's not what Cooper Fife does either. So he's a kid that can beat you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, we have some action shots here. Coach Juan Martinez shared these with us, Scott. He also sent a couple of highlight compilations from YouTube, but they were like, 5 and 6 minutes long. So we just, we don't have time for that, but you can go to YouTube and look up Cooper.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
They're pretty cool. Plus, Scott, I'm not going to lie, saw a lot of Jerome defenders, and no, I'm just kidding.
No, before I sent you that stuff, I went back and edited it all out, and there's not one in there at all because we shut him down. I think he had like 2 points.
Yeah. So here's what we got. Coach Martinez gave us some action shots here. This is him going toe to toe with one of the best defenders in the conference, Riker Stimson from Minico.
Yeah. And that's, we've got some pretty good defenders in this conference and some height as well. And, that Minico team is a very tall team. And, he was able to get it done against them. In fact, Cooper is only the third player in Wood River history with 1,000 points. So that tells you how good this kid is and his capability every night. And, and this is a team that, they're on the doorstep of staring down a state berth right now. And that's something that Wood River boys basketball has not been able to say for quite a while.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. The next action shot, this is him in a non-conference game against Caldwell early in the season on his way to the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the help defender there, I'm sure he scored.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this is what we're talking about. I mean, it's just the ability to get to the rim. And he's smooth, he's tall, he's graceful on his attacks, not just like a bull in a china closet where you get a linebacker with a football and he just runs over people. I mean, he knows how to finesse his way, to the front of the rim. And, this particular Wood River team led by 5. I mean, this is a team that's got 11 seniors on it, and this is a group that's been together for quite some time. And when you get that allows people like Fife to kind of settle in and know what your teammates are doing because you guys have played together for so long.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. You talked about that grace that Cooper can show. Here it is right at the bucket, laying it in for 2. And then Coach Martinez labeled all of these photos for us. Scott, I love this last one. He labeled it Coop de Loop is what he titled it as.
Oh, yeah. And if you know Coach Martinez, and I've known Coach for a while, it's just he's such a personality. He's one of those guys that you just can't help but like. He wears, I don't even know what kind of hat that he wears at all of his games, but he wears the. Man, I wish I'd had him send me a picture of him, but you look at it and he's just an interesting guy because he's so likable. He had his younger sister was Kat Martinez that played at Wood River, who was so good. When I was coaching, we played against her, and so this is a family that's been there for a bit. Juan is part of that, but you look at him and you go like, what is this guy doing? He's got the weird hat on. He's energetic. The kids love him and they would run through a wall for him, but he just is an interesting guy and a very, very likable guy. And these kids at Wood River, they are responding to him big time. And so I'm kind of, secretly a fan of what they're doing right now.
Yeah, from one Juan to another, Juan Alvarado in the chat here. He's the football coach at Canyon Ridge High, also a teacher. He goes, yeah, that Fife kid had a good game here against Canyon Ridge. He's a dude for sure. And there's lots of dudes on this Wood River team. You mentioned it's a varsity roster of 12 players and 11 are seniors. That is just unheard of in today's game. What'll happen is a coach will look at that and go, well, if I want to build for the future at all, I can't have this many seniors. And so he'll go to a couple and go, hey, you can come out for the team if you want to, but really you're going to be handcuffed to the bench. And I'd understand if you wanted to do something else. You try to get a couple of kids to maybe not pursue it that way, or you just cut them. I've seen some ruthless coaches just cut a kid that's a senior because, hey, we got to have some younger bodies. But Coach Martinez is going the other way. He's leaning into it and going, yeah, 11 seniors. Let's do it.
We're all in. Let's do it. I mean, and it doesn't matter what classification size it is. When you get a class like this that's coming through, it's rare. I mean, even 5A level, I mean, Wood River is really kind of more 3A than 4A in a lot of different things. And Wood River is one of those weird places that is hard to coach because it's a whole different makeup up there. But this is a special class. And they know what's in front of them. They know that they're staring at an opportunity to go to the state tournament for the first time since, the early 2000s, and would be the first time, I think, since they have been 4A, So, I mean, it's almost historic in a way what's going on up there. And it's all eyes are on them. I mean, they're going to have to get through some pretty good teams because right now that Canyon Ridge team under first-year head coach Alex Wells is really playing well. They've got some height in the Hill kid. They've got some weapons, and they match up really well with Wood River. And so it's going to be a battle. But then you can't count out teams like Minico, who's kind of in the shadows. Twin is right there. So this is going to be a really good district tournament in this conference. But right now, I think all eyes are just kind of watching to see what Wood River does.
Yeah, Scott, as we approach the end of the regular season here, programming note, Saturday, we're going to have a little Magic Valley game night on IdahoSports.com. Boys basketball, Jerome at Burley. Two teams that are trying to get some momentum going into the postseason to potentially play the role of spoiler. Two pretty evenly matched teams. I think that's going to be a fun one for everybody to tune in and watch Saturday night.
Yeah, it will be. And, and it's there's something on the line for seeding in the district tournament. And, and I feel for Coach Messick at Jerome, just because, he's without a doubt one of the best coaches in the state of Idaho, and we're just dang lucky to have him. But what he's been able to do with such a limited roster, he's got everybody hurt. He is a mash unit. Just you're looking out. There's nobody on the bench. When we show up and we set up for the games, we just put out like 4 chairs. That's all they need. Because unless they're all sitting down at the same time, you're not going to need them. They had 7 dressed up the other night, and their senior is out. Their leader is out. It's just. But I tell you what, they go up there and they play hard. They went up to Wood River a couple nights ago and just played their rear ends off, and Wood River pulled away in the end. It was just, they're going to play hard. They're just a little bit, they don't have enough soldiers right now. And that was a team that I thought could play spoiler in this conference if they were at full strength. But, we'll see. That'll be a good Magic Valley game night on Saturday.
For sure. And then at the top of the standings, Canyon Ridge 11-1, and then you look at Twin is 8-3, Wood River is 8-4, Minico is 7-4. So Wood River's completed their league slate. They're done. They're locked in. Twin plays Saturday night against Mountain Home. We think they'll probably win that. Mountain Home hasn't won yet this year, but if they lost, then you're looking at a tie between them and Wood River. And then Minico is 7-4. You're looking at a potential 3-way tie in the loss column. Now, Minico is kind of done too, Scott. There was a game with Jerome earlier this year. They got wiped out because of weather and just couldn't make it up, right? So how does that impact the standings if there was a tie?
If it came down to it, then it would be more or less a 2-for-1 loss for Jerome, meaning that Minico beat them once, and that might count for the 2 losses. We're going to see how the rest of this plays out, but I think that would be the solution. Sometimes you just can't get it scheduled because of both teams just don't have the openings, and then you look at down the road too. It's like, well, is it going to matter? And there's no state law that says a rule that says you have to make it up. It's all based on what your conference decides. So, a lot of people were thinking, well, the state rule says you have to know it. You don't, your conference has to dictate that. But yeah, you're looking at this Canyon Ridge, Twin, Wood River, Minico, those are the ones. And what is happening right now is I think Minico is the one that could play spoiler. And you're looking at a conference that is going to take 2 teams out of there. And there are right now 3.5 that have a legitimate shot. I think Canyon Ridge should qualify. If they don't finish in the top 2, then they'll have a collapse or an injury or something has happened. The second place battle is really kind of what's interesting, because Twin, Wood River, and Minico being the spoiler, because Minico has just got some size, and it's tough to compete against size if they can get that going in the right direction. But don't count out Twin. They certainly can knock off Canyon Ridge. Wood River can. Man, I'm just looking at this going, I don't even know how to predict this, because it's going to be tough.
It is, because every team, those 3 all have good guard play and some height. You look at Minico, you mentioned it, Dominic Soto at 6'6", and Wayment is 6'4", 6'5", something like that. They've got Riker Stimson out front, and then you look at Twin, right? It's all these Jared Mix and Logan Pittard and all these great guards that have been there for 10 million years, I feel like. And
yeah, they got all those guys back from last year, and they're experienced. And then Canyon Ridge is the one team that I think talent-wise, top to bottom, has got it all. It's just that they don't have the culture of winning yet, because they, for the longest time, had just underperformed. They had the most talent for several years in our conference, but they just didn't know how to win. And the rest of us are going, continue that, because the minute you figure it out over there is the minute we're all playing for second. And Coach Wells over there came in, got their attitude adjusted, and now they're playing. And everybody's like, okay, well, we figured this day was coming. And here's Canyon Ridge atop the standings, and we're all looking at second place.
Yeah, and it's just one last thought, and then we'll wrap it up here because we've gone long, and I apologize for that, Scott. But the coaches in this league, Joe Messick at Jerome is kind of the dean of the coaches, the elder statesman, if you will. And then Brian Bethel at Mountain Home has been there for 10 plus years. But other than that, it's all relatively new guys. I think Coach Martinez at Wood River is third longest in terms of seniority, and I think he's been there 3 or 4 years. And then the rest are all first-year guys. You look at or second year. Brad Caracia at Burley is in his second year, and Max Stannard, who used to coach Burley, is now in his first full year at Twin. And then Alex Wells at Canyon Ridge, you mentioned, and then Minico, Brady Trankel, of course, retired last year, and Doug Manning, longtime assistant coach, is now leading Minico in his first season. So there's a lot of new blood too.
Yeah. I mean, Joe's been there for about 45 years, and second in line is Juan in his third year. And there you go. After that, it's like, Grandpa Joe, what do we do now? I'm going to have some fun with that one today. I can't wait to get back.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well.
Yeah, I shouldn't be saying that for a guy that really wants to keep him on staff, right? So, screw it. Grandpa Joe it is. I'm going to go tease him.
All right. It sounds like a game plan. So again, of course, Magic Valley game night, Saturday night, Jerome at Burley, boys basketball. You can tune into that on IdahoSports.com. Otherwise, next week, Scott, instead of you and I, it'll be our girls basketball state preview special. That is going to be Tuesday night, 7:00 Mountain Time, live right here on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Should be a good time.
Yeah, and so we will get back to the Magic Valley Prepcast, 2 weeks from now?
Yes.
And we'll have a lot to talk about because girls state will be over. We can recap some of Magic Valley teams, and we'll be right into the thick of things with boys district tournaments. So it doesn't end. It just gets busier.
That's right. Blurred lines for sure. So thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everybody. Scott's thoughts is something we normally do here on the show, but Scott, we've gone so long today. I'm just going to push that. Yep, we'll table it because we've gone over the hour mark, which is usually not a good sign, especially on a Friday when you've got to get ready for a district tournament game tonight. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got two guys here that could just talk for 6 hours. It's probably time we shut it down.
Yes, for sure. And we thought coming in, this will be a shorter one. We'll just rip through the brackets, and it's funny how that works sometimes.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you in 2 weeks for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.